Hi, folks. My name's Stephen Kane, aka on this channel, Legal Amigo. I'm a Stanford trained lawyer turned legal tech startup founder who spent the last 10 plus years trying to make the legal system more fair. It's been a real uphill battle. It's really hard to do, but I haven't given up yet, and neither should you. I'm making these videos so that I can help people help themselves, because I've seen firsthand how difficult it is, not just in my own personal life, but also through trying to make the legal system more fair, through representing my own clients, how difficult it is for people who aren't lawyers to figure anything out. It's a wonder anything gets done in this system. It's so hard. Whether that's small claims court, or figuring out your credit report, or what's fair on landlord-tenant security deposit disputes. It can be tough. So I'm hoping these videos help. This video is going to be about severance agreements. So if you're watching this video today, I'm sorry that you lost your job, or maybe you're an employer. Sorry you lost your job, especially if it's right now, June 2024. It's a tough economy. I don't care what they say. We know it's a tough economy. Prices have gone up. It's tough to get work. So sorry to hear it, but hopefully this helps a little bit. If you were offered a severance agreement, hopefully that means you have some money and maybe some other compensation, other benefits coming your way. If you weren't offered a severance agreement, stick around to the end, because we're going to talk about how to start that conversation. So I have some notes here. You're going to see me looking down from time to time. Lawyers, a good lawyer should have notes, and I think it's important. I want to make sure I cover all the basic important topics. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. But by the way, I'm going to say right now, I never wear suits. You'll never see me in a suit. You can comment on whether you think a lawyer should wear a suit. I don't think a good lawyer has to wear a suit. Maybe in court, that's a little different. I'm the type of lawyer that tries to keep people out of court. I'm the outside general counsel for a lot of small businesses and startups. But anyway, you got to be yourself, right? It's important. So, okay, first of all, what is a severance agreement? We're already 2 minutes in and we got to get to the point. A severance agreement is an insurance policy for an employer, basically. It's a way for them to get peace of mind that you're not going to sue. And they don't necessarily give it to you because they think you're going to sue, although sometimes that might be the case. But it's really just kind of like this insurance policy where they know that this employee left and there's not going to be a lawsuit, because that could cost an employer a whole lot of money, right? Lawsuit might cost 150, 200 grand, something like that to defend. A lot of times their insurance will pay for it, but then their premiums go up and it's a lot to deal with. So that's basically how employers really think about it, especially larger corporate employers. A lot of small businesses may not give severance agreements. They may not be familiar with it. It may not be their policy. They may not have the funds to do it. But definitely a lot of corporate and mid-sized employers do. And that's kind of how they think about it. You're agreeing not to sue, and they're giving you a bag of money. So it's totally voluntary that they offer it to you, unless it was maybe promised to you in an employment agreement, but that's not very common. Sometimes it might even be in an employee handbook that there's a policy about severance, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have to give you a severance agreement and money for you not to sue. So anyway, should you sign it? Well, that's a very personal thing, right? So the first question is, do you have a claim? Do you have a claim where you'd want to sue them? And if you do have a claim and you want to sue them, then probably you don't want to sign it, and maybe talk to an attorney about what you should do about your claim. Or maybe go to a government agency with your claim, or maybe even take your employer to small claims court because they owe you money. You can take a business to small claims court if you're an individual for up to $12,500. So depending on the situation. But if you have a claim, maybe don't sign one, especially if that claim is worth a lot of money, especially if it's important for you to get your day in court. But if you don't have a claim, maybe you want to consider signing one. And also, if their contract's fair and reasonable, then you want to consider signing it. Now, you may get the contract and it may look like Greek to you. You may not know all the terms, but maybe you could try using ChatGPT. It's not perfect. It hallucinates on legal stuff. But maybe you could use ChatGPT to interpret your contract. Maybe you can just Google any words you don't understand, right? Lawyers like to use a lot of big fancy words, but if you find the definition out about them, then you can see what they're saying. I wouldn't just blindly trust that the agreement's okay. Although I will say most of the time, especially if it's a big reputable corporation, these agreements are templates that lawyers have reviewed. In my experience, usually they're reasonable. Like at least 2/3, 80% of the time, something like that, they're reasonable. Not always though. So maybe try reviewing it to the best you can. If you can afford to pay an attorney for a couple hours of time to review it, like if you're getting enough money on the severance, then definitely, I would think about doing that, and just be straight up with the employer that, or sorry, with the attorney that, hey, I just want to pay a couple hours of time for you to give me like a basic review, make sure there's no red flags. Maybe if you can afford more like 5 to 6 hours of an attorney time, they could do a more thorough review. They can do some of the stuff I'm going to mention in this video. Like looking at your employment agreement, looking at the employee handbook, thinking about other issues, adding different language to protect you in the agreement. Just depends. Like some people get $60,000, $120,000, $200,000 severance agreements, and some people it's $2,000. So it just kind of depends. You should definitely think about negotiating the amount of the severance, especially because you know that this is peace of mind for them and it's worth something, right? And especially if they're just giving you a small amount of money. There are different ways to negotiate. Certainly if you have a claim, you could say, hey, I have a claim. I would prefer not to go through litigation. I'm considering it, but if we can settle on terms that make sense to me in the severance agreement, then I won't go through litigation. Definitely if you have a claim, you have leverage to negotiate a bigger amount. Another way of doing it might be if the employee handbook has something about a standard. A lot of companies will give 2 weeks per every year that somebody has worked. They'll give 2 weeks of pay in the severance per year you've worked. So if you've been there 10 years, they'll give you 20 weeks of severance. Other companies might give a month per year that you've worked. So if you've been there 10 years, they'll give 10 months of severance. So that's like 10 months of your salary, or it would be 20 weeks of your salary if it's the 2-week rule of thumb. But a lot of companies use that. So you could go to your employer and say, hey, it seems like industry standard or standard for these agreements are at least 2 weeks per year that I've worked. I've worked 3 years. I want 6 weeks of my worth of my salary of severance. That's a good way to negotiate. You might also point to the fact that it's a tough job market, and you've been there a long time, and you're going to file for unemployment, yes, which you want to make sure they don't contest. That's another term, but that you want them to be fair and reasonable if they expect you to sign the severance agreement. And by the way, if they're giving you like $500, maybe it's not worth it for you to sign the severance agreement. There might be claims you don't know about. It just may not be worth it. And if they're giving you like a really small amount of money like that, then push really hard on the negotiation. I say just go for it. Anyway, other things you want to be thinking about are if you have any unpaid time off, if you have any receipts that need to be reimbursed, they got to do that like immediately once you give them the receipts when you leave. If you have a bonus coming up, you can maybe negotiate to get at least part of that. You can delay your termination dates so they don't terminate you right away, and you can have time to look for a job. Say, hey, give me another month working, plus a severance after that, plus unemployment. Let me start looking for a job at least, and say I have a job while I'm looking. You can put in the agreement that they won't contest your unemployment filing. Now, you can get unemployment unless you were a total a problem at work. Like basically, unless you torpedoed your job on purpose, you qualify for unemployment, basically, at least in California. And you can get severance and qualify for a lot of these benefits as long as you weren't terminated for cause, like you didn't commit a crime, fraud, something like that. So as long as you weren't that kind of issue where it's just that they don't think your performance was there, or they just terminated you for no reason, because a lot of times they can terminate you as they would like, at will. You're considered an at-will employee a lot of times. Then unless any of that's true, then you can get unemployment, but it's nice for them to agree not to contest it, because that could create delays and headaches for you. It's also nice if they could agree to provide a reference as part of the severance agreement, and maybe they can extend your health benefits. You get COBRA benefits. Usually your health benefits go to the end of the month, and then you get COBRA where you could pay for your own benefits for like some months after that. But how nice would it be if they paid also for a few months of healthcare benefits? I did that for one or two of my former employees. You never know what companies are willing to do. If they're taking you off the books, and especially if they're laying off like a group of people, then they're getting some savings coming up. So they might have some cap room, or a lot of times they've been thoughtful and budgeted out money for everybody's severance and maybe other benefits, things like that. So you just never know. Usually doesn't hurt to ask. Maybe they withdraw the severance, but then you can remind them the risk of litigation if they do, and you could think about, do you have a claim? You might. So anyway, there's other things you want to do. So yeah, review your employment agreement just to make sure there's nothing weird in there, or maybe there's like you got stock options in there or stock or profit sharing that you want to make sure is part of the discussion on the severance agreement. Look at the employee handbook in case there's some sort of standard on the amount of severance they give. They're not necessarily held to that, but it's a good way to negotiate if it's in there. Look at any stock paperwork you might have. Check out if you have to like exercise any options and what the rules are on that. And usually you can keep your stock or exercise stock options, again, unless you were like fired for cause. But you got to read that paperwork or check out your stock option agreement paperwork or restricted stock agreement paperwork or profit sharing agreement or whatever it is. Make sure that you get paid out on that, or that you still keep the stocks, or that you exercise your stock options if you need to. I might do another video on that. Put in the comments if you want me to. Things like that, and just think about all the compensation you might be owed. And then keep in mind that sometimes they'll give a deadline on you signing these agreements. Those deadlines are arbitrary. It's like they could extend it if they want, and it's good for you just to know that. But they like getting it done by a certain time, right? Then HR can report to their boss, we got it done. It takes away their anxiety, but talk to them if you need to. If you have good reason to extend the deadline, talk to them about whether they're willing to do that. If you're over 40, they have to give you 21 days to review the agreement. And then even after you sign it, you can take it back within 7 days. That's at companies with over a certain number of employees. And then another important thing for you to know is that you do have to pay taxes on your severance, on the money they give you in your severance agreement, whatever compensation they give you. I'm not talking about like PTO that they agree to pay out. That's taxed on its own. But I'm saying this with this severance amount. And by the way, on PTO, you'll have to check. Maybe put in the comments how that's taxed. I don't know offhand. I'm going to be honest with you if I don't know something. I'm going to tell you if I know something. I don't know offhand how PTO is taxed. But I do know that severance is taxed as income. So keep that in mind. So if you're getting 10 grand and you usually pay 30% taxes, then that'll be, 7 grand, right? Keep that in mind when you're negotiating. That's important. Okay, now last but not least, if you're not offered a severance agreement, you're fired and you're not offered a severance agreement and you think they can afford it, ask them for one, push for one. Tell them that it's only fair, especially if you've been there a few years. I'm saying if they can afford it. If they can't afford it, still ask for one, maybe on a payment plan. What's the downside at that point? And then especially if you have a claim, go see a lawyer, get a consult. You can get a free consultation with a PI employment attorney, a personal injury employment attorney. If you have a big claim, that's worth considering. I know it's scary, but you know what? It's worth considering if you have a big claim. And at least you know that, and if they didn't give you a severance agreement and you have a claim, then go to them and say, what are you thinking? You can't cause me legal issues, and then not care, and then put me out high and dry. You have liability. You have a choice. Maybe I'll go explore suing you, right? Or maybe we'll make a deal here. And how much is that worth to you? You'll see how quickly they react if you do something like that. Legal Amigo likes fairness. Legal Amigo se gusta fairness. Do you like fairness? I like fairness. Okay, so what we're going to do is, this is my note, legalamigo.co. The website's not up. This is my first ever video. If you've gone this far, you like the video, so then please like and subscribe and all that stuff. But I'm going to put up a website. If we start getting traction with these videos, I'm going to release one video a week. I'll put up a website, legalamigo.co, with different resources on each of these topics. I don't know. We'll play around with it. But we'll do like a little bit of information on each topic I cover and then take it from there. Maybe build some community. This is going to be fun. It's great to meet you. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful. Thanks very much.